Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome back to our Scream coverage, where today we are going to be talking Scream 5, Scream 2022, or 5 Cream, whatever you want to call it. We're talking Scream. Yes, so this was an interesting one for us. This was right before Luke and I decided to reboot the podcast, really go for it last year. I gotta say, it's probably one of the films that motivated us. Luke, do you think so?
I think so. I think, coming out of that film, we had our very specific opinions on it, and we had a lot to say just between us. So that was kind of the thing that was like, well, a catalyst to maybe we should start recording some of these conversations. For better or worse, we do now.
We do. And of course, again, today we are joined by Evan from Rockland Graves Productions here. Evan, what was your reaction when you first saw Scream 2022 5 Cream?
Okay, so I think to contextualize my reaction, I should say how I saw it. Of course, I saw it in a theater like everyone else when that movie first came out because it was massive. For whatever reason, I was the only person in the theater when I went to see it. So I think I went at a really weird time. So I just got to fully react and just be loud and have fun with it. And I remember leaving the theater right after watching all of them, be like, that was my favorite Scream sequel. I really liked it the first time I saw it. And then I rewatched it last week, and that has changed. But we'll get to that, of course. But yeah, my initial reaction was that I really liked it. I thought it was entertaining. It was emotional. It was brutal. It was creative at the time. And I initially had fun with it.
There you go. And Luke, I know you and I saw it together, like we said, so we kind of had the same opinion on it, but I'll let you take it away. Describe your first outing with 5 Cream.
Oh man, so it was a cold night. Now, we talked. Yes, we talked Scream, and that film I have such a love for. And going into any of these Scream films, for some reason, I'm overly positive in all of them. I feel going into them like, oh, it's gonna be great. The storytelling's gonna be really well done. So going into it, I was extremely positive. And then we chipped a little bit off the armor as we kept going through the film, so by the time I was done with it, especially by the third act, I was just like, well, here we are, and I was none too pleased, I would say. So overall, this one was a pretty big disappointment from my end.
I'm right there with you guys. Obviously I was with Luke, so I didn't walk out of there saying I loved it like Evan did, but I remember having kind of a very similar reaction to it as I had just had when I rewatched it. It opens really strong. It's definitely Jenna Ortega having that kind of mirrored kind of interaction, sort of like the first film, where everything, of course, it's going for that legacy sequel, requel kind of approach for this one.
Sounds about right. You ready for this? Never.
So they have to mirror it. They have to bring people back into it. So why not just do the most iconic scene from the first film? And they change it up a little bit here and there, and of course she survives. But it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I was sold. I mean, I was like, okay, this is fun. This is cool. I think that it's brutal. It definitely feels a little bit harsher than what I was expecting. And honestly, that first act and everything, I'm kind of like, okay, cool. Like I'm into this. I like it. I like where we're going. I like seeing Ghostface again. And as we start getting into towards the mid to the second half of the second act, I'm starting to start to lose it a little bit. There's a big moment with a character that I can say all three of us absolutely adore. That definitely put a sour taste in my mouth, even though I get it. Got to let bygones be bygones, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, by the time we got to the wrap up of this film and the killer reveal, I was checked out. I was like, come on, guys. Like, this is the return. Like, we haven't had Scream by this point in like 11 years. Like, we need to really hit the gas hard. And like, we're in a horror resurgence. We're in the midst of it. So it's one of those things where it's like, I expected more from this movie. I didn't think, just because you guys were parodying, or kind of not parodying, but really riffing on requel or legacy sequel, that we had to just follow that format beat by beat, because I feel like, with the other Scream films, when it comes to their sequels, they did change it up a little bit. I mean, not so much in 3. I mean, even though 3, I would say, is probably takes the most risks, but like, definitely talking about remakes with 4, I loved what they did. So for this, yeah, I was none too pleased by the time I walked out of there. I went in very positive, and yeah, I just remember Luke and I having that conversation outside the theater, just like, oh, God, man, like they didn't do it for me. Like, what the hell?
Well, maybe you're the killer, because that cut deep.
And yeah, I was even more surprised when all the real positive buzz started to surround this film. But yeah, I think that's everything for us here on what we thought. But why don't we dive into the movie? We'll talk about that opening. Evan, how do you feel about the opening?
The opening is probably the best opening sequence since the first movie, for me. I thought that opening sequence was fantastic. I thought that the first time. I thought that the second time. It was such a cool refresh on what they did in the first one. I love the hacked security system, even though there's no fucking way they'd know how to do that. But the hacked security system was such a cool idea. I love the text. I think it could have been a little more creative than "This isn't Amber." Like, that line has been used so many times, but that was cool. I just thought it was a very suspenseful scene that got the closest to recapturing the dread that I felt from the opening of the first one. So the opening sequence, I'm very positive on. I think it was a cool, subversion of expectations to have Jenna Ortega survive. And side note, Jenna Ortega is phenomenal in this movie. She's so good. And this is the scene where she really gets to shine the most, because she's not the focus for most of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of the primary characters, but she's not the focus. And I thought she just got to fucking let loose in this scene, and it was amazing. I love this opening.
Yeah, and then Luke, what are your thoughts on this opening here?
I'm with everyone where I think this is a really strong opening. I do love Scream 2's opening, but this one, I love the kind of parallels that they draw from the first one, as we got into the discussion with Drew Barrymore in that first video that we did. And, thinking back on that one, where it was like, one of the points I was going to bring up was, how maybe a slip of the tongue, maybe it's not a slip of the tongue of who am I looking at? Whereas, like, looking at the quiz that they give her, and the not being able to look on your phone for answers, and it's just like, you can misinterpret who the killer is in the original Friday the 13th if you're not really thinking about it. And then, like, this one, I love that they have her like looking through her phone, getting the answers, because it's all right there. That's what we would do in 2023. So it was really, or 2022. So that's really true to life type of writing there. And that's really where I love that they took that. And then, like Evan said, kind of subverting our expectation of, the opening is always that person's going to be killed. But nope, we carry her over into, we realize, nope, she's in the hospital. She's going to survive, and she's going to be a character throughout it. So I do love that the parallels that they draw from that original film, because no other installment had done that prior. But then they also bring it into the 2022 element, So overall, I think it was such a strong start to it. And that's really where, coming out of, Halloween 2018 and being like, okay, this is my franchise. They're really going to do it. And then I'm like sitting there like, yes, they nailed this one. And then, as we just go through it, they start losing me.
Yeah, and I got to say, I like the grit, especially rewatching this, like her getting stabbed in the hand, blocking the blade.
Brutal.
Like, I really like it. Like, I love how she just gets thrown around the room, and it does really make Ghostface feel imposing again. And it is something where it's like, yeah, I really appreciated that. And you know, I do think it's a strong opening. I'm with you guys on that. I love Jenna Ortega. I think that she is definitely a standout, not only in this, but in a lot of her horror work that she's been doing recently. So it's like I'm excited to kind of see her take the Scream Queen status, her and Mia Goth, and move forward from here on. But yeah, I think she's a perfect fit for this series. And it is disappointing to me that the rest of the film doesn't hit as well because, again, it is strong. It really does return to the form. And yes, is it similar to the opening? And you could probably ding it for that. Yeah. But I think that Luke even brought that up too, where it's like the fact that she's looking up answers on her phone, it does do a good job of kind of modernizing it. And again, making you feel like Scream. And I think that's the biggest thing for my first watch and even this one where it's like, yeah, this does feel, you know, watching the first one and this kind of back to back, this does feel very in line with that original and very in line with the franchise. Um, and I think that, you know, I might go out on a limb here and you guys might disagree with me on this, which is fine. But I think that this movie overall does a pretty solid job of, for the most part, especially in the first like act and a half, of really making you feel like you're in that universe still. I think that the kids sitting around just after they message her sister and let her know that, Tara, I think is Jenna Ortega's name in this. That's the other thing. I don't remember anybody's name in this, which is
it gets
a
tough.
big thing because, like, with the first Scream, you've got, Sydney, Randy, Billy, Stu, all these people that you can just rattle off. With this one, it's just Jenna Ortega. And I think Sam Carpenter, I can say I remember that because of Carpenter. But yeah, I think they do a good job of making you really feel like these are high school kids. They lose me a little bit when they're hanging out in the bar because it's like these kids are 17, 18. Like, I don't know. I might have been just a loser in high school, but I wasn't hanging out in any bars playing pool when I was in high school. There's a
character named Wes, by the way. That's another one.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was a cool little reference.
That was a nice nod. And I actually think that that was
I don't remember who he is, but I know there's a guy named Wes.
Yeah,
I'm forgetting his name.
We'll get him.
Like Don't Breathe and
Dylan Minnette. Yeah, I thought he was great. I liked that a lot. I think that's another positive in the film here. But yeah, I think going through the cast, how do you guys feel about the younger versions here, the younger additions to it, where it's like we're kind of now, we kind of had it a little bit with Scream 4, where we had the kind of the younger crowd coming into it, but even then, like now these are more like the Gen Z era kind of kids and just how they attack to it.
I think it's hard to talk about the characters with it because it's similar to the story where, like, I think the characterization started out really strong and I really liked them, but I feel like the more developed the characters got, the more they just fell apart. Part of the thing that I really love about Scream is how grounded it feels. Most of the characters feel like they can be actual people, but like the characters in this movie like didn't feel like they were people at all.
Hi. Do you know if there's any beer left? There's none in the kitchen.
Yes, Richie, there's beer in the basement. Right behind you. Basement. Yeah.
Do you want to come with me?
No, but you were right to ask.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be right back. Yeah.
They felt like they were in a parody of Scream more so than they were in a Scream movie.
That's a very fair point.
Not so much at the start. Again, like that sequence when they're around the fountain is great. The bar scene, as you said, is kind of weird. I did notice that the random guy who, oh my God, what's the main character's name? What is her name?
Sam Carpenter and
so
Richie.
Do you
remember talking
that
about her boyfriend?
random douchebag who shows up at the bar?
Kyle Gallner's character.
Yeah, because I remember I was watching this. I was like, oh, he was in Smile. But my other question, because I love Smile, but then I was like, why is he in this movie? It was one of the most throwaway, pointless kills I've seen. In a long time, like he played absolutely no part in the role. So I think that's in the role in the movie as a whole. But that I think that's part of the issue with the characters is that they don't feel necessary. Most of them, like it feels like they're filling something out to hit a checklist.
Yeah, and Luke, your feelings on these guys?
Yeah, so I'm with you guys in terms of like as we start, I think everything's gelling fairly well. But then, like for me, when we start talking about requels and everything, and then I'm finding out that everyone's related to Randy or Stu, and it's like where we talked about the original Scream script and Kevin Williamson, that being very strong, very meta. This for me felt like the writer sat down and said, "Let's watch Scream. Let's take the Kevin Williamson kind of how he did certain things, and then let's try to cheaply imitate that
It's
while
super
adding in
forced.
some comedy." And it's like,
Mhm.
and that's where they start really losing me, where they're trying to be very flamboyant in their deliveries, and it's like for me, I think. Uh, a big weakness here is that a lot of the characters that are introduced aren't actually of their own kind of merit in terms of character. They're imitations of characters that we had previously seen, and it's nothing original, nothing new. And it's like when we're sitting here and we haven't had a Scream in a decade, you're getting a fresh start. There's a lot you can do here. There's a lot you can
Mhm.
bring to the table, and we're replicating everything that we had seen prior. So it's nothing new. For me, these characters were just so throwaway for the most part.
I agree. And so, why don't we talk about the legacy cast, though? So, obviously, we've got Courtney Cox, we've got Nev Campbell coming back, and of course, David Arquette, who we all enjoy here. We said in the first film. Um, I think, one of the bright spots in this was giving Dewey the role that he has of kind of being almost the mentor figure. One of the things, the connections that I made in my head was this feels very Force Awakens in a sense of like how they handle Dewey's arc, where he comes in, he's working with the younger kids, he's helping them through, and then he is unceremoniously killed off.
Yes, today. It's an honor.
In a sense where it's like it is upsetting because it's like you love seeing him come back. He's doing his thing. So they kind of Han Solo him in my Star Wars brain tells me that as we watch this. But it's one of those things where it's like I think that David Arquette is as great here as he's ever been, and I think that's another reason why it hurts so bad when he goes down. I love Dewey in this. I love the winks and nods that they have to him when he's just kind of you know in the slums and like not really like in his prime anymore. He's no longer the sheriff, and he's just kind of living in this trailer and everything. It's just kind of like I like that. Um, Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox, they're good. They feel very shoehorned in because they're introduced so late into the movie. That's just my thoughts. Evan, how do you feel about the legacy cast?
Aside from Dewey, they're completely wasted.
Mm.
Um, one of my favorite things about the Scream movies has always been the dynamic between Courtney Cox and David Arquette, and part of that I'm sure has to do with the fact that they were actually,
Married, yeah.
involved outside of the franchise, so their chemistry was always very good. And this movie, I know I'm kind of getting into dynamics there more so than the characters, but the movie completely wasted my favorite dynamic.
Why aren't you in uniform?
Retired.
Since when?
Since they asked me to.
Dewey.
I don't need your pity, Gail. I made my choices, so did you.
It was my turn. It was a great opportunity. You said you'd try.
And I did.
For 2 whole months.
Listen, if you want to make me feel worse than I already do, good luck. The mornings aren't so bad because I get to see you pretend I'm still back there in New York. Then I remember. but I couldn't hack it.
Because I think they had one scene together before we lose Dewey. 1 or 2 scenes maybe, which was a ridiculous way to end that. I was so invested in it too. When he's watching her on TV, it's so sweet. That's so
It is.
Dewey. That's absolutely his character through and through. He was great. I'm sure we'll get into his death at some point.
Oh yeah, we'll have a point.
Oh yeah. Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox definitely feel shoehorned in. It's weird because I think Nev is the most forced. Neither of them do a ton, but Nev really felt like she was there because she had to be, which is really unfortunate because, you know, she's not in 6. So like, as it stands, could 5 be her last? If 5 is Nev Campbell's last Scream movie, that fucking sucks.
Sorry about that.
I agree. Yeah.
Courtney Cox, obviously, we know is going to be in 6, and I thought she was great here. The legacy characters, aside from Dewey, I don't know, man. They were completely pointless.
I agree. Yeah. Luke, how are we feeling about the legacy characters? I know you got a lot to say on this one, so.
You know, I feel like we're all in agreement here, but
This is an echo chamber.
like, you know,
This is a therapy session.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what it is.
Scream 5 cream therapy.
you know, it's like you mentioned legacy characters, and my first thought was, wait, what legacy characters were in here for, you know, because it's like, again, we have Sidney Prescott, Gale Weathers, I think are completely wasted. For me, I will stand on the idea that I know we have to critique the film that we got, not the film that we could have gotten. But for me, my biggest contention here was this should have been a Dewey story, where we had Dewey there. There was so much going on with him, with his alcoholism, not being part of the police force anymore, being this old, weathered, beaten kind of guy, not having Gale, and still being in the town of Woodsboro, where everyone else has left him, kind of, and, you know, kind of admiring Gale on the TV and doing his own thing there, especially having that arc from no one taking Dewey seriously in the original Scream, and then now he is where he is, as we pick up with him in 2022. I really think there's so much mileage from beginning to end that if you weren't going to have him come out of this film, he dies at the end. He doesn't die midway through to kind of as a plot device to get the ball rolling more. I don't think you needed Nev Campbell or oh my gosh, why am I forgetting her name? Courtney Cox. To come in, maybe as just some cameos. Like, for me, I don't know if there's a clear. Apparently, there's not a clear vision in terms of, since Nev Campbell's not coming back. But I would have had them come back later on. Whereas if you're going to have Dewey die at the end, and that's what the catalyst is to have them come back, because there was so much mileage out of David Arquette as Dewey, and it's like I felt like we didn't get that, and to have the quality of film that we had Dewey die on really kind of pissed me off.
I get it. And so why don't we roll right into that then? I think it now is the most appropriate time. Like, Dewey's death, it's rough. It's tough to see. I don't know if it's as hard to watch because it's a character that, you know, I at least can say, like, I admire so much and I love. I think that he is one of the big pieces, especially as the sequels go on, is like the heart and soul of this franchise. Again, I think that you said it best, Evan, where it's like, Dewey and Gale's relationship is something that I always looked forward to watching blossom as we went through these sequels and see where it went. Like, just going back and watching 4 and seeing them married and living together and kind of living their simple life, where Gale's still trying to, like, you know, get a new book out and do her thing. It's just like, it's wonderful. It's stuff we like. And yes, of course, you know, they had their relationship. They could say they're divorced or separated. You still have those cute moments. But yeah, to have them like not interact at all, hardly, and then to kill him off so unceremoniously. And I think one of the things that I hate about it too is that it's like you kind of set it up to where Gale is sort of responsible for Dewey's death because she's calling him on the cell phone. And so he gets distracted, which is dumb in and of itself. After so many movies, it's like, do you really think that Dewey Riley would be that big of a buffoon at this point, like especially where he is now and how he's calling it as he sees it as the film's going on. Like they make so many hints and jokes towards the beginning of this movie of who the killers are.
Who's he?
Oh, this is Richie, my boyfriend.
How long have you known him?
6 months?
Did he know who your dad was when you met? Express any interest in Woodsboro or the Ghostface killings?
What the hell are you talking about?
Your killer's obsessed with the stab movies, right? Well, there's certain rules to surviving a stab movie. Believe me, I know. Rule number 1, never trust the love interest.
And like he just calls it right off the rip and he ends up being right. And it's one of those things where it's like, you really think he's just going to fumble around with his phone and not take the kill shot right there? Like, what is going on with this writing, man? Like, how are you going to disservice this character so much?
Yeah, I was just about to mention that his death scene showed off how poorly written this movie is. I have so many notes about things that like don't make sense for the characters or terrible lines. Like, I don't know what these writers were doing or what audience they thought they were serving. I remember the first time I saw it, because I was in the theater by myself, when Dewey died, I was being very vocal, like, no, I'm so sad. I was
We were
like,
upset
crying
too.
out. Yeah, and I was having fun, but like rewatching it, I was like, he's an expert with this shit, and he walked up a foot away from the guy and didn't shoot him immediately. What the fuck are you doing with this character? It was so stupid. It makes absolutely no sense for this character who knows these situations in and out so thoroughly to behave that way and to not just do it either from a distance or do it immediately. It's absurd. Luke, I'll let you go because I'm just gonna go in a loop there. It pisses me off.
Yeah, and like looking at, because I could see people easily defending that interaction between Gale and Dewey, saying, life isn't always a happy ending. It's you never know sometimes when you're going to see that person last, so it could just be a fleeting moment, and then we both move on with our lives thinking I'll see this person again, so we don't get that moment. But for me, I'm watching this film, and we've been through it for 4 installments here. I need my sensationalized, glorious moment between Dewey and Gale.
Yes.
I don't need that real life
movie.
moment. That's not. Yes, it's like we need the closure. We need that moment to count. So that argument of it's more realistic that way. It doesn't hold any water for me because it's like we need that. That's what I've been wanting. That's what I need. If it's not going to be a happy ending for Dewey, which I absolutely wanted so bad, I at least need a good, positive moment, definitive moment with Gale, not just some fleeting moment. And then going into, his death again. I'm gonna be echoing everyone in the room here, where it's just you fast forward to Gale not believing Amber. It's a trap. Everyone from the original cast is just the smartest person in the room, no matter what, except for Dewey. And it's like Dewey's been through this. He is the one that is not believing anyone. He's always on guard. We pick up with everyone's lives and they're all doing their own thing. Dewey's still in Woodsboro. He's living in that moment. So like for him to just go up willy-nilly thinking, okay, I'm going to get real close to this person and then kill them. It's like, no, he would have shot him from way back when I don't think he would have ever left the vicinity to go to the elevator to come back to shoot them. I think he would have done it right then. It's like he's an expert in this stuff, so it
wouldn't be an afterthought.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't even been something that he could have vocalized. It would have been just a reactionary moment to be like, okay, now we're done. And then they also missed another strong, what could have been potentially something would have been really interesting was to have Ghostface die. One Ghostface die.
Yeah, I remember you bringing that up as we walked out of the theater.
I never thought about that. That's cool.
What the hell would we be talking? Like, it would have been an insanely different movie to have him dispatch one of the ghost faces right there.
They have to redo their whole plan.
And I know I keep throwing out ideas, but every time I go back to it, especially with the relationships that they establish, if one of the ghost face was one of the brother sister, and then they would have been thinking it was the other one, it would have just heightened the sense of paranoia. And it's like, They didn't go that route. I think they set up so much potential for this that never got follow through.
And I gotta say, one of the narratives that I've seen pushed on Twitter and everything as we've gotten further away from the positive reception of this film and people kind of reappraise it is a lot of people agree that, to quote the great Walk Hard Dewey Cox story, the wrong kid died.
Be careful now, you hear? Before you go and say something you're going to regret for the rest of your days.
Like what? Like the wrong kid died?
Oh, no!
I think that a lot of people, and I kind of agree with this, I think it would have been more shocking and a little bit more interesting to have Gale Weathers be the one to get dispatched and then see Dewey deal with that, especially with him, still fawning over her, watching her news stories and all that. And then they have that meeting, they get together, they have a bit more time together. Maybe Gale dies right towards the end. And it's shocking, and it's something the characters have to deal with going forward into 6. And, just from what we can infer from the trailers and stuff, how much more intense would it be to see, Dewey going out there and being like, oh, I think that there's more people involved in this. They set up Gale's murder, blah, blah, all this. Like, I think it would have really been wonderful to see him shepherd this trilogy. Maybe he dies in the 3rd one if you want to kill off all the legacy characters, sure, but like to have him die here just felt so unceremonious and just so disrespectful in a way. If my fandom voice is coming out and saying you disrespected this character, you did, and I'm sorry. That's just what it is. But going on to our next point here, we're talking about this. We're talking about disrespecting characters, all the characters. Moving away from that, we all kind of agree that this film is kind of, a mess writing-wise. And it kind of falls into the reveal of the killers. But I want to just know, like, where do we kind of feel? Like, at what point do you guys feel? And I'll kind of hop in at the end here. Evan, where do you feel the story starts to really fall off for you? What is the moment where things kind of start to unglue themselves and you're kind of starting to be like, okay, this is not hitting like it should?
That's a good question. I feel like I almost don't even notice it while I'm watching until it's gotten to a certain point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I want to say it's got to be around the party. Obviously, like that's when it starts to get really bad. Mm-hmm. From a writing standpoint. There were so many little moments. Like I have a note here where I noticed it's just indicative of the quality of the writing here. When those two are making out on the couch and she's like, "Oh, I want to go upstairs. I'm ready." And the guy goes like, "No, I don't want to go up with you because I don't know if you're the killer or not." And then the next scene is him going outside by himself in the dark, going to it, like turning on a GP, going like, "Here's where I am." Like you wouldn't go upstairs to the bedroom, but you're gonna go out to the back and like go, "Come get me."
No, stop. Wait.
Like fucking raise a giant flag. Here I am, guys. It's just like, it's things like that. I think that's where it started to really annoy me from a story and writing standpoint, was just around where the party takes place was when I started to see a lot more of the cracks showing. It's also when a lot of the first meeting with Dewey, when the whole group is there, is really bad. Mm-hmm. Aside from Dewey, because that's when all the meta conversation starts to get way too on the nose, and
they really turn it up a lot. Yeah.
It, like you're watching it and you're just like, oh my god, can you be your own movie for half a fucking second?
The hardcore Stab fans hated it. You go on 4chan and Reddit, all they're talking about is how Stab 8 pissed on their childhoods, how they crammed in social commentary just to make it elevated, how the main character is a Mary Sue.
What's a Mary Sue?
You really don't want to know.
What's wrong with elevated horror? I mean, Jordan Peele fucking rules.
Obviously, but that's not Stab. Always goes back to the original.
Are you telling me that I'm caught in the middle of fan fucking fiction?
Not just in the middle, Sam. You're the star.
don't rely on everyone else. You can do your own thing here. Like every line in Scream 5 after that point is relating to the structure of horror movies, which means that this movie can't stand on its own at all. It has no legs of its own. It entirely relies on like the genre surrounding it and the times we're in, but it doesn't even do anything creative with the tropes. It just uses them and then references them and thinks that, oh, because we pointed out that it's stupid, that makes it cool and meta. It doesn't.
I get it. Luke, how are we feeling about where does it fall off for you?
That discussion with the meta-ness and the requels and everything,
It's just ridiculous.
Like that's where it becomes evident that we're trying to cheaply replicate a Kevin Williamson script. You know, it's like it doesn't come off as genuine, it doesn't come off as its own thing. It's like what can we put in here that's an interesting conversation to basically, like Evan said, absolve our weak writing as okay, since we pointed it out, we're absolved from it, and hey, this is cool because we intentionally did it. That doesn't make it good, you know. So it's like at that point, that's when it starts falling apart. I get overly annoyed at that point. I'm just like, the hell with it, you know. It's we're falling back in the same things. It just becomes absolutely weak after that, and I think I come out of that interaction hating all the new characters for the most part. You know, it's like I'm checking out of this. I hope that Ghostface gets all of you, and then Dewey's the only one left standing. So yeah,
so annoying.
At that point, it's just like it's way too meta for me.
I can definitely echo what you guys are saying with a lot of this. Honestly, for me, things start to get a little overzealous a bit earlier. Where I can say like the first real solid crack for me is the Billy Loomis ghost.
How you doing, Sam? Antipsychotics aren't working as well as they used to, are they?
Fuck you.
Like,
I forgot about that. I completely forgot about it.
It's so forced, it feels like, and
it's so out of place in a Scream movie. Why is that here?
And the whole element again, where I think, you know, I forget which one of you said it, but I think I'll give you both credit. You're perfect with it. Is just like how they can't really have this original identity to this film, because the idea that Billy was sleeping around behind Sydney's back, okay, sure. But to have a whole kid and, you know, in such a grounded first film, and then to come here and then, you know, have this be a whole thing, it's just like, it is very contrived. I feel like you have to walk around an entire mountain of plot holes to get to that point. And it's very frustrating. And I love seeing Skeet Ulrich back. Like, that's fine. But like, it's so jarring and uncanny valley. Yeah, it is very weird. And it just, you don't need that. Like, you really don't need that. It's like she could have as easily just been like, you know, back at her parents' house and maybe going through some of her mom's stuff and found a photo of him or something. And that's what you could have done. You know, like, you don't have to have this ghost. And I'm so worried about Scream 6 and the fact that they're probably going to have more of that, because like people kind of have these theories that, you know, Sam is going to be kind of crazy in this one and going to be kind of like very much emulating Billy. And I'm so worried about having scenes where like every time she goes to kill a ghost face or every time she like shoots somebody, you know, you're going to see like Billy's ghost like right there. It's like, that'd be so weird and different. And I don't like it. Yeah. It just messes me up every time.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just like,
it doesn't work. And I mean, like, every time he pops up, and it's like, you know, I don't, especially trying to Sam being like the sympathetic character, and then we're seeing Billy Loomis kind of like pointing things out to her and be like, there's a knife, and, you know, go kill everybody. And it's like, how am I supposed to feel about this? Because Billy Loomis was the one of the main antagonists in the first film. So it's like, am I supposed to be like on board with him now, you know, egging on Sam and cheering her on? And so it's like, I don't know what kind of direction you want to point the audience in, because, you know, I don't feel positive about it because he, you know, tried to kill the main character, Sidney Prescott. So it's like I don't know exactly what kind of tone they wanted us or what emotion they were trying to rip out of us at that point. So I was getting a little confused every time I see it.
I also just think that it's indicative of. It was something that I noticed when I was rewatching, was character backstories get explained like that.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as a character is introduced, we know everything that we need to know about them, which leaves no room for development as the movie goes on. Having, Skeet talk to Sam is just a really forced way to give backstory. And like, I just felt like that happened every time we met a character where like they were immediately set in everything we were going to know about them. We knew about them as soon as we met them. Yeah. And that makes for a really hard watch because you're not getting new information about these people, and it makes it really hard to care about anyone.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's wherever this film starts to show its cracks for you, I mean, like it's clear every time I watch it that it's like I kind of go in hoping that I like this one a little bit more, or that maybe I was wrong, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it does just start to seep through.
I don't want to like bash everything about it. I think it's shot well.
Yeah,
the cinematography is actually really solid. The way that they frame Ghostface is great. I really like that sequence when the dude from 13 Reasons Why is like walking around like opening random cupboards and fridges, and like this music keeps building up, but nothing's happening, and the music builds up again, nothing happens. I thought that was kind of cool. The framing of the mom getting stabbed right outside the house. That was really cool. How it was like threatening, I'm getting your son, I know he's in the shower, and she gets there and you're thinking she's going to go up and he's going to be dead. But she gets to the house and Ghostface is right there waiting for her, pops out and
right
kills
on the
her.
front
And
lawn.
I thought that was really good. Broad daylight, right on her own front lawn. That's fucking scary.
Yeah.
The whole sequence in the cop car was really tense. It was suspenseful. That was really well executed. So there are good things with this movie. There are sequences that work well in a vacuum, but as a whole, it just falls flat.
Doesn't gel.
No.
And I agree with you there. There are a lot of really great sequences. I think
which hurts more. If it was all shit, it would be easier.
Yeah.
Yep.
The kills, I think, are very solid throughout. I think there's again that grit to it.
The throat,
I gotta say Kyle Gallner's death was one that I like. That with the needle drop of Red Right Hand, like it's totally legacy sequel stuff. Where it's like, we're just
a quick,
playing into it,
vicious, oh, you're done. That's all it takes, I guess. Okay.
Yep. And I like how the music's playing on the car, and then it finishes after he stabs just in the film itself.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate that. I think there's some talent here, which is why, just a little preview, because I want to touch a little bit of our thoughts going into Scream 6 at the end of this, is just like, I think that Scream 6, they could really do it. There's hope here. Don't shackle yourself to the legacy sequel stuff. But before we get into that, the last point that I want to touch on is obviously the reveal. Who our killers are and their motivations.
You're the killer.
No, I'm not.
Liv, stop. Liv, just stop!
Fuck you, Amber. I'm not the fucking killer.
I know. Welcome to Act 3.
Run! Thank God you're okay. Because I really wanted to be the one to kill you.
Because
I'm leave now. I'm
it's
tapping out.
It's so frustrating, dude. It just like the fact that they're like really playing into this Last Jedi style kind of internet mob hate thing. It's just like, guys, for the love of God, please don't do this. When it first started popping up, I was just like, this is really your motivation? This is why you're murdering people? Yeah, it's just like, dude, it frustrates the hell out of me.
Someone has to save the franchise. You see? No one has made a great stab movie since the first one. Not really.
You see the last stab movie?
Not really a fan of scary movies.
That checks out. Anyway, it sucked balls. Because nobody takes the true fans seriously. Not really. They just laugh at us. And why? Because we love something? We're just a fucking joke to them? How can fandom be toxic. It's about love. They don't fucking understand these movies are important to people.
Richie.
And we're gonna help them. Hollywood's totally fucking out of ideas, so we decided we'd give them some new source material to follow, you know? Bring it back to basics. Because that's how you make a great stab movie, Sam.
And yeah, Evan, I gotta know, like, when that first happened for you, like, I guess in the theater, you know, you might have, I guess you said you liked it a little bit. So was that ever a point of contention for you, or was that something more on this watch you were like, oh,
No,
that doesn't work?
I even remember the first time when I liked it, I didn't like the ending. But I also enjoyed it more in the theater because I was by myself and I was just letting loose. I don't think I was being very critical. When I watched it recently, I was looking at it with a much more analytical eye. I mean, the reveal is just, it's awful. It's
She just has the gun, and
it's
yeah, just...
really bad. One thing is, like, I feel like it would have been a lot more satisfying if they had done interesting things to set the boyfriend up prior, because his characterization did not work at all. And it's one thing to subvert expectations, build a character up, but you need to be able to see the cracks. You need to be able to rewatch it and go, oh, there's that there. And, you know, there are minor things, like in the hospital when he's like, oh, I was watching Netflix. Like, okay. You weren't, but that's okay. But in terms of his characterization, it did not work at all. You need to set that up. The other girl, most obvious thing ever, she played the exact same role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, she even gets burned to death in a very similar way.
Crisp.
I was rewatching it. I was like, did they just watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and went, we want to do that again?
Damn, Tarantino's a genius, isn't he?
Right.
Like, I love it.
Right? Oh, I mean, that movie's amazing, and that's part of it too. As I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, I could be watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood right now.
I get it. Luke, how do you feel about the twist reveal?
It did not work. For me to watch this film in 2022 in the relationship to be established was through a subreddit. It feels like this was taken out of a script during like 2011, 2012, when it was becoming more of a, you know, a thing to be like, oh, well, yeah, they met on a subreddit, where it's like, in 2022, it feels like a cheap plot device to connect two characters. You know, it's like been done to death. It's nothing really unique or different. It was something for me that came off overly weak for something where we want a strong unveiling, especially when we've waited this long to actually get this film. And it's just like, really, that's the best we came up with, huh? Was a stab subreddit.
I met Richie on the Stab subreddit. I've been obsessed ever since my parents bought this house. We realized pretty quickly we had similar ideas.
Wasn't that hard for me to find you in Modesto? It wasn't that hard for me to fuck you either. But I guess being a sexually available woman is supposed to be empowering these days. Fuck you.
You know, so like for me, it did not gel. It did not work. And then, you know, like Evan said, the cracks were never really shown. It was never an anticipation of anything, you know. So for me, and again, I didn't resonate with the Richie character or the Amber character. So for me, I was like, you know, nothing lost, nothing gained here. So, you know, for me, it was just kind of, that's where the third act just falls completely flat, because by the time it's unveiled, I already don't care.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, you're good.
I wanted to touch a bit on that motivation, because the motivation of your killer killing people because he wants a cool movie to come out is one of
that was
the
what I was about to get onto.
I've ever heard. That is so stupid that their whole motivation was they met on a subreddit and they were like, wow, Stab 27 sucked. I hope the next one's good. So let's
gotta be based on real life.
Like,
let's
what are you talking
motivate
about?
it. Like,
why don't you just write a screenplay
and then hand it exactly right? Like, it's just so contrived. It's such a stretch. And
Make a fan film.
Every time I watch it, seriously, like the amount of fan films that are like actually
that
worth the damn
cool,
is
actually.
like, yeah, it is a stretch, and it is one of those things where I'm just like, in these movies, like it's kind of like we talked about M. Night Shyamalan a couple weeks ago with Knock at the Cabin, how that man has been known for his twists. And I guess spoilers for Knock at the Cabin. Have you seen it?
No, but go ahead.
It's not a big spoiler. It's just like there is no twist in Knock at the Cabin. It is a straightforward film. So it's like that was nice and refreshing. That was cool. But it's one of those things where in this you kind of anticipate. We've been trained to anticipate a shocking, like, who's it going to be? Who's the killer? And it's okay if it doesn't catch you off guard, because I don't think in 4 it really caught anybody off guard. 3 was pretty all over the place. 2 is again a bit contrived, but fun. It's interesting. But like to be coming back and to kind of have this time difference and to really make it something special, I think this was the best opportunity to do that. And again, like Luke said, to have it be a subreddit that brought everybody together, and to the motivation that you said, Evan, of like, we just want the next movie to be great. Like, that is goofy. That is fucking silly. That is something that I would expect in a scary movie.
Yeah.
Words right out of my mouth. Right there. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'd expect there. And ultimately, I think that's the nail in the coffin for me here, where it's just like, that's the final nail. It's like, yeah, all right. Scream 5 Cream. It didn't work for me. It's just, it is what it is. But I still respect people if they enjoyed this. I know Scream is fun. I'm really happy to have the franchise back. And personally, I mean, Luke and I have talked about it. I know you've talked about it on your channel. I'm looking forward to Scream 6.
I'm actually optimistic about it.
I think that, maybe they've learned a few things. We gave David Gordon Green the benefit of the doubt every time he had a Halloween movie come out, and Luke and I always had opinions about them. And, it's just one of those things where it's like, we like elements of it, but like, I really think that they can knock this one out of the park if they, because they're already changing the setting. They're already changing the kind of tone of the film. I think that they kind of maybe took the criticism that they did get to heart, and I can only hope that they're really going to push it now. They're going to be like, okay, Legacy sequel's done. We don't have to follow that formula. Now let's really change it up. Let's really do something scary here. Setting it in New York, having it be where it's like, one of the best quotes I got, I think, was from Mike from We Watched the Movie, where he was saying, an angle that I never considered was, in New York, it's different than Woodsboro. In Woodsboro, someone gets murdered, it's the talk of the town. New York City, someone's getting stabbed like every 15 minutes, dude. Like, it's a big city with a lot of people. So it's like,
if a gas station's getting shot up with a fucking shotgun, but
there's probably another one on the other side of town where it's like they're getting robbed or mugged. So it's like, it's not going to be unique. They're really going to be on their own. So I hope they play into that.
Yeah. I also notice in the trailer that they are so adamant saying this is different. This time it's different. And because they're saying that, they really have to pull out something that's different. Because if your whole marketing is relying on this is a different Scream movie, it has to be. And what makes me a little concerned is that I went back and saw some of the Scream 5 marketing, and they said the same thing. And in Scream 5, they said, oh, but this one's different. This time it's different. I'm like, no, it's not. This is exactly the same. I sound like a cartoon character right now. It's exactly the same. I hope Scream 6 doesn't do this. It looks really cool. It looks frenetic and intense and brutal. And I like the Ghostface so far. He looks really cool. It looks like it's once again going to be shot really well. The setting has me excited. The characters are going to get more of a chance to be fleshed out because not all of them died. I think there's potential here. As I said before we were recording, they really are just like pulling the Halloween trilogy right now, where the first one was like a return to form. Second one's going to be a more intense, frenetic, crazy movie with a withered mask. And who knows, maybe in the third movie, Corey will be the killer. You never know.
It's just a totally different
thing. They get Rohan Campbell in that third one.
Oh my God, if he gets cast, that's going to be one of those things where people are going to go off. They're going to be like, no, not again. And then you'll have people be like, yes, please, absolutely more.
No, that would be funny though.
Luke.
But
oh yeah, you want to finish up?
No, I wasn't actually saying anything else.
Luke, your thoughts, Scream 6.
I mean, we've talked about it to good extent here on the podcast and on Sunday Scaries, where the marketing looks great. I'm intrigued by it. I think it looks like a lot of fun. Definitely looks intense. And like I said, I always go into these Scream films being overly positive. So, even though I was not a fan of Scream 5, I'm ready to go into Scream 6 and be hurt again. So we'll see what happens. Hey, Dewey died. So the worst thing that could happen to me in a
Yeah,
Scream
nothing can hurt
universe.
that much.
Yep. So, hey. And what the most positive is that, hey, maybe Stu shows up. So we'll see what happens. It
Maybe
could be a
Dewey will
pretty.
start talking in Gale's head in the next one.
There
Oh
we
my
go.
God, yes.
We'll
There
just
we
have
go.
by Scream 7, it's just like all the original cast dead, but it's just
Yeah.
they're all coming back. It's like
Yeah, in mirrors.
de-aged, younger
Yeah.
versions of their
Oh,
dead selves.
God.
Perfect.
It's all the recent Star Wars trilogy where they're gonna be all at the end, all talking in Sam Carpenter's head of just being like, you can do this. You're one of us. You've got this. Like you can take down the Ghostface. Honestly, this movie has to do one thing, and that's bring Stu Macher back, and I will love it no matter how bad it is. Just because I
Just
think
more
that's a
Matthew Lillard.
funny.
It's always a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I honestly, yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I'm optimistic, but it can go either way.
Yeah. I don't know
'Cause
why I am, but the marketing looks good. So
we were optimistic about 5. Like
That
honestly, Luke
exactly,
and I
yeah.
went into it saying, "Hey, I'm so excited for this. This is going to be fun." Like we weren't even doing the podcast at the time, so we were just like, "Yeah, this is like a good time." It was me and his wife and Luke, and we just went in, and God, I just remember turning to each other after and just being like, "Really? That was it?" I think we audibly like shouted at the screen at one
Oh,
point.
yeah.
Like we were just like, "Dude, what the fuck? Like
We
why?"
were vocally not happy by the end, by the credits.
Yeah.
We were ranking them. So
I was too, but I was by myself. So
There you go. You didn't have anybody to
No.
be like, "Shut the fuck up, guys." Like,
Yeah,
God,
no, it was all good.
there you go. But alrighty, I think that's everything we can say about 5 Cream. That's definitely our thoughts. I mean, again, this is another one that I'd like to really dive deep
Me too. I want to
in
do
the
that on my channel
podcast,
as
get
well.
behind the scenes, see what the writing process was like on this, what it took to put this thing together. I'm sure there's some interesting behind the scenes stories about it. Again, just because it doesn't work for us doesn't mean that, you're wrong for liking it or anything like that. I totally get people are excited about this and they like Scream. And some people, they really just want the simple story. They want something that's a little bit close to home that brings them back to this. And I don't have an issue if you like that. It's I think that we need to establish that a little bit because we were so harsh on it and living in a post Halloween Ends world where everybody's either like you got to love it or you hate it kind of thing. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's okay if you like this movie. It's like you're not
Wait,
wrong.
The movie's actually good. Dead Meat was in it.
Yeah.
I'm changing my review.
There you go.
James and Chelsea were in it. I'm all good.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's I always like when they reach out to the community and kind of get people in there. Like I think
also
that
know that must have been the coolest thing for James because Scream
Oh,
is like that's
absolutely.
his fucking he loves Scream. So when I saw that I was so happy for him.
They spend a night or two in the Stu Macher house at one point.
Why didn't they go to the actual house for the end of Scream 5? They could have just done the same shot.
I don't know.
They didn't need to digitally recreate it. That was fucking stupid. Anyway, we're done with the review, so
Yeah.
I'll stop talking.
But yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap us up here for 5 Cream. Definitely thank you again, Evan, for joining us on this review. We really appreciate the insights and getting to talk to you here. It's been a lot of fun. But we're not quite done. So catch us back here sometime. It's not a completely official what day we're doing it, but we're gonna give each other some time here. We're gonna check out Scream 6 just here in a couple of days. We're going to have our review up on this channel, and Evan's going to be putting his review up on his channel. So definitely check those out. And then we're going to come together, whether it be that following Monday or whatever. We're going to talk Scream 6 spoiler talk, review, discussion, dissection, whatever you want to call it. We're going to talk all the spoilers in Scream 6. And it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys will join us for that after seeing the film.
And I'll be able to speak. That
yes.
time.
let's hope your voice is recovered then.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't that bad. So, but other than that, guys, yeah, of course you can follow us on the channel here. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We are definitely got a lot of good content coming your way, not just Scream related. We also have 65 is going to be coming out that weekend too. So we're going to be checking that out, seeing Adam Driver fight some dinosaurs. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm going to pass it over to Evan. Definitely let them know where they can find you, Evan.
Yeah, so I am fellow horror reviewer over at Rockland Graves Productions. I've been uploading bi-weekly, going through the Evil Dead series. I don't actually know which video will be out by the time this goes up. So I'll just say I've been going through the Evil Dead series leading up to Rise. I've got a couple other things that I'm doing between those to keep things fresh. But if you like horror, if you like really in-depth, nerdy reviews, check out Rockland Graves Productions.
Absolutely. Evan runs a great channel over there. Definitely enjoy his content a lot. And I'll have a link to his channel in the description below for you guys to go over there and hit that subscribe button. But yeah, that's going to wrap us up here, guys. So you'll catch us back here for the spoiler discussion. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And I'm Evan from Rockland Graves.
And remember, stay scared.
Directed by his